Our next speaker is Link Ho-Wing. He's Assistant Vice President of Internet and Technology Issues for Verizon. He is responsible for identifying and assessing emerging issues, developing corporate positions on Internet and technology industry issues. In addition to these responsibilities, he develops relationships with high technology industry members, interactive technology associations, research institutes, and think tanks. And in his spare time, he delivers public addresses on high technology issues. Thank you, Link Ho-Wing.
Thank you. You left out the most important thing, too, that I'm a good friend of Marie Johns, who's now a deputy at the SBA. She used to be a Verizon employee. In fact, she was the president of our Washington company for a long time, so she knows a lot about the communications industry. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm glad I heard the previous speakers because I heard a lot of discussion about international as well as small business, and I do want to focus on that. One thing I wanted to start off with, especially in the international arena, is I actually lived overseas for a number of years in Australia, New Zealand, sometime in Thailand as well, with communications companies. And a lot of what Susan said, I think, is very true about the global economy and how it's changing. It's very important. And one of the things that's not recognized, probably all of you don't recognize much, is that Verizon is actually not a local phone company. We actually are a three-part company. We do provide local phone services and broadband services. We also provide wireless service. And we provide global Internet connectivity. We actually have a backbone, which is the major lines that connect the Internet and telephone calls globally. And we connect 160 countries. So, and we actually operate in many countries. We have a license now to operate in India, for example, and provide business services. We don't provide residential services overseas, but we do provide a lot of business connectivity, connectivity for governments, and also broadband connectivity. So we're very active in the global sense. So I wanted to do three quick things. One is to give you a sense of where the industry is headed, because as was mentioned, I spent a lot of my time looking at trends in the industry and strategic planning work for Verizon. Secondly, a little focus on small business particularly and what kinds of technologies are coming down the pike for them. And then third, I think three areas that you may want to focus on in your work in Washington and policy with respect to broadband communications in particular, because there's a lot of activity going on now in Washington to make sure everybody gets connected to broadband. So first, what is broadband? I think you all know this, but basically it's high-speed connections mainly focused on data and connectivity to the Internet. In the old dial-up days when we had dial-up connections to the Internet, they were very slow. You couldn't do video, for example. Today you can do all of that and more. So broadband has really revolutionized communications, and it's based on Internet protocols, the way the Internet works. So what I wanted to give you as a picture of is where that's headed, then a little bit on small business, and then some three policy areas that you may want to focus on. First on broadband, just give you a quick snapshot. 35 million broadband customers have been connected in the last 5 years in the United States. So the broadband sector, which is the wireless companies that deliver broadband like Verizon, the wireless companies that now increasingly have broadband connectivity available. Verizon is one of those two, but T-Mobile is one, Sprint, AT&T. They've all done a good job of building out these networks and connecting people to broadband. So just in the last 5 years, we connected 35 million new households to broadband. Around 72 million Americans today have a broadband connection in their home and are using it actively. We still have a number of people that aren't connected. I heard the congressman talk about the digital divide. I want to focus on that for a second at the end. But we have made a lot of progress in getting broadband into people's homes. And one of the interesting trends is that on the wireless side in particular, mobile broadband is growing very rapidly. And in two sectors of the economy in particular, African Americans and Hispanics are very aggressive users of mobile broadband, much more than whites are. So that's an area of real promise, I think, for connecting people to the Internet using mobile smartphones and mobile broadband. The industry as a whole, that's the telephone companies, the cable companies, which also provide broadband, and the telephone and the wireless companies, have invested about $360 billion in the last 6 years to build out broadband networks. Verizon, for example, has built the first fiber-to-the-home network in the United States. We now have about 16.5 million houses that can get fiber broadband, which means multi-megabits of connectivity both ways, both directions. We're also building out what's called fourth-generation wireless technology in the United States. And actually, we're more advanced than most other countries are in this area. Verizon has already begun constructing what's called a 4G wireless network, which means connectivity that's even faster than today's landline broadband connections. So up to 12 megabits per second, which means you can do video, you can do two-way video conversations with a mobile phone. It's really going to revolutionize communications. I heard someone mention that AT&T's phones are available in Africa and one of the few that can be used. That is true because we use a different technology that AT&T does. But in this fourth generation wireless, everybody's going to be using the same protocols. So our technology will be available worldwide. And we have a partner called Vodafone, which is a part owner of Verizon Wireless, which is also very active in Africa and Europe, also selling mobile broadband. So our company is basically doing broadband in all different flavors, whether it's wireless or landline. Just give you a flavor of what happens with our network on a daily basis, and keep in mind there are, as I said, broadband companies ranging from Time Warner to Comcast, AT&T, also providing broadband connectivity. But in Verizon's case, every day 100 million people connect with one of our networks to communicate. About 2 billion text messages are sent back and forth every day on our networks. About 50 million videos are uploaded or downloaded. 450 million emails are exchanged. The picture I want to create for you is how seamlessly all this works. I know there are sometimes hiccups, and sometimes you don't get your email or your communications or your video don't work quite right, but generally speaking, these networks have done an amazing job of connecting people. And I heard mentioned earlier about e-commerce. This has really revolutionized the way the businesses can work in the United States and globally. So the reality is, I think the industry has done quite well. We're investing a lot, and the policies we created to make this possible, especially policies that allowed companies to invest without a lot of regulation, especially economic regulation, has really helped a lot.